Hi, you're listening to Childless and Moving Onward. This is the place where we talk about thriving in life when you're a woman who is childless, not by choice, regardless of the road that brought you to childlessness. Hi, and welcome to episode 46 of Childless and Moving Onward. In this podcast, I navigate the often painful, complex terrain of involuntary childlessness. We look at the raw emotions, the unexpected revelations, and the transformative journeys that are possible when you didn't choose this path. Today, I'm diving into curious conversations, discovering meaningful alternatives to the all too common question, do you have kids? I'm your host, Gail Miller. I'm a physician, a life coach, and a speaker. And join me in my podcast as I guide you through this important conversation. And I do try to sprinkle a little bit of humor in this, not to belittle it, but to, add in a little break in the depth of the painful emotions. And I try to include some heartfelt insights that will hopefully transform how we connect with one another. Now, this sounds like, oh, this isn't for me if I'm childless, not by choice. This is for other people who ask this question, but it's not just for them. It's for you so that you can also learn how to take other avenues to switch the conversation up. Okay, so I'm going to be transparent, totally honest with you. While sometimes it does feel like a knife to heart when people ask me, do you have kids? I don't necessarily think there's something wrong with the question. I do, however, have a big problem, when the person asking becomes uncomfortable when I say no. But I do know that being asked, do you have children, can be a sensitive topic, a painful topic for many. And for many, it feels very wrong for anybody to ask it. Now, I may view it differently to some degree for myself personally. Like I said, it does hurt, but I don't necessarily think it's not okay to ask the question in many situations. So I get that for many, this is painful and you don't think that it should be asked. And I understand why so many think that question should just be banned. But here are some reasons why this question may be inappropriate or uncomfortable. One, for individuals who are involuntary childless, the question can bring up painful emotions. It can be a harsh reminder of the struggles and of the range of emotions that come with this, the grief, the anger, the frustration. Sometimes with it comes a sense of failure and unworthiness. And now you're being asked about this, and it can feel incredibly awkward in a social setting. It feels vulnerable. The second reason why this may not be the most appropriate of questions is it implies a norm, a specific norm, which is that having children is the expected path or the normal path in life. So when you don't fit that vision of what's considered the norm, it brings with it a sense of being marginalized. Sometimes it's an indirect message, and with some people, they'll say it outright. You're not normal, or whatever other really rude, insensitive, inappropriate ways people will describe this. But either way, whether it's direct or indirect, it reinforces the stigma of childlessness. Another reason why it's not appropriate is that whether or not you're a parent can feel, or being asked about it, can feel incredibly intrusive. This is especially true when it's someone you don't know well. If you're a private person, it becomes really difficult when it leads to conversations about personal choices or circumstances that aren't other people's business and that you don't want to talk about. But people naturally assume with that question and your answer that they can then pry. No, they can't. Now, that brings me to the fourth reason why it can be a really inappropriate question. Those discussions about personal circumstances often, usually, lead to judgment about others in general, and that includes about judgment about those who are childless. The judgment about the particular path that led you to being childless. And others often have no understanding that they're not in your shoes and they have no right to determine what you should or should have done. But they will scrutinize away without a filter, without boundaries. And then part of this is asking about children is perpetuating stereotypes about gender roles and expectations of women by society. And that now brings me to the related reason, number 5, why this is not the best option of questions to ask. More often than not, it does lead to assumptions and judgment and unwanted advice. For some reason, people think it's okay to give advice, ways to try to become a parent, advice about snake oil cures, or what seem to be quick and easy fixes for whatever the reason that you are childless. When this starts, if I haven't already, I'm going to be honest with you, I do the eye roll. At first, when I did it, I didn't mean to. I was like, oh, my, what I'm thinking just came out on my face. And then I realized there's nothing wrong with that. I'm showing them judgment in return for the judgment they're showing me, and they're being intrusive, and it's not okay. So I don't hide the eye roll. And sometimes it rolls so much, my eyes roll so much, I can practically see out the back of my head. Changing the way we talk and the questions we ask to be more supportive and inclusive respects each person's experience and circumstances. Is there a choice when you're first meeting someone, getting to know somebody, a choice other than, do you have children? Yes. Let me count the ways. Oh, wait a second. I can't count them because there are so many other compelling, interesting questions to get to know someone. And the bonus is that the other questions can lead to meaningful conversations that show that a woman's worth is more than motherhood. We're more than just a stereotype. Instead of asking, do you have children, consider, well, how about this? What are you passionate about? I mean, that opens up conversations with someone about what truly excites them, what they value. How about what books have you read recently, or what podcasts do you love? Leads to discussions about personal growth and shared interests. Maybe, what projects are you currently working on? Whether you're talking about personal projects or related to work, you're giving someone the opportunity to talk about their goals and what they're accomplishing. And again, now I'm saying this to probably most people who are listening are childless not by choice, and this is information that others need. But I'm giving you these questions because in response to people asking you, do you have children? These are responses you can give to start a different conversation that's meaningful for you. that someone can use to get to know you, and that you can then, you're asking of other people, so you are getting to know something meaningful about them. So here's just a short list of several more, just a start really. But again, tell other people. These are some things you can ask yourself, but also have these questions in mind. So when people start down the road with you of, do you have children? Change the conversation by asking them these questions, letting them know these are things in return they can ask of you, so they can get to know you as a whole. Because you're more than just whether or not you're a mom. So here are just a few suggestions. What's the most interesting adventure you've ever been on? How about, if you could learn any new skill instantly, what would it be? What's a book or movie that changed your perspective? What's your favorite way to spend a weekend? What do you enjoy doing in your free time? What's the most memorable experience you've had? Who has been the most influential person in your life, real or fiction? What's something you're looking forward to in the next few months? If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be? What's a hobby or interest that most people don't know about you? What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? What's something you're currently curious about learning? Again, this is just a start. And again, these are needed for people who ask the inevitable. Do you have children? But it's not just for them. It's for you to be able to turn the table and ask them questions to get to know them, and to demonstrate for them, hey, there's other things to talk about. How about you ask me these things in return? So this is a way of changing the topic of conversation away from your reproductive status, and firmly but politely let others know that's not a question that's necessarily okay. But here's a question or questions that are acceptable, and we can both get to know each other in a meaningful way. Now, as I said earlier, generally being asked if I have children isn't too much of an issue for me personally. Yes, it does hurt, but I don't necessarily think that when people ask me that, it's, for me, inappropriate. Again, I do understand others feel differently, and I respect that. I do think the question lacks originality, and it furthers the judgment that the only accomplishment that matters in life is being a parent. But what really frustrates and annoys me is when people become uncomfortable with my answer of no. Sorry, not sorry, but you're responsible for your discomfort over my childlessness, because your discomfort speaks about your bias about women, and that to you our worth is based only on motherhood. But something that really shocked me was when someone meeting me for the first time and asking the first get to know you question asked, how many children do you have? She couldn't even consider that someone might not have children. She just jumped straight to, how many do you have? And of course, when I said none, or I said no human children, but I have 3 dogs. Well, the no, I don't have any human children, you could see the change in her. Like, she had already judged me as less than. And then when I threw in the, yes, I'm mother to dogs, whoo, that just threw her over the edge. And the anger was palpable. All right, so that's what happened to me, not just once. Let's talk about now some steps to take to educate people that the question, do you have children, can be a sensitive one. Share your story. Share the part or maybe the whole thing, whatever feels right to you. By doing that, you're sharing the difficulties with being childless, not by choice, so that some people will realize this is a sensitive topic and maybe it's one that's best avoided. And if you want to know more about sharing your story, why it's so important to do, listen to episode 43 of the podcast, where I talk about sharing your story. Educate people in a direct way by explicitly letting them know this is a sensitive topic and it's triggering for some people. Another way to educate people that this is a sensitive and often painful question is to let other people know, hey, there's some other questions you can ask that are inclusive to everyone. Let people know that there are other ways to have a fulfilling life that can highlight and challenge assumptions about women and parenthood. Another way to educate people is to encourage them to make an effort to understand the challenges of those who are childless, not by choice, to be open to our perspective in life so they can gain a better understanding about why the question, do you have children, can be a problem. So where and how can you get this message across besides your personal, social, and community connections? There's a few other key settings. The first is online communities and social media groups like Reddit, Instagram, podcasts that focus on personal stories, YouTube channels, personal blogs. Be prepared for the negative comments in response. There's always that. But know that the benefits of you doing this, you're going to reach other people who are going to learn from this. Talk about this at work, in workshops, in groups that are about inclusion in the workplace. Talk to HR about this, about other topics of conversation that they can encourage in like settings where employees are meeting each other for the first time. Houses of worship, talk to clergy, educate them, offer to give a talk to their congregants. And another place, which is a personal sticking point for me, and that is healthcare. And that's because I work in healthcare and I have experienced the insensitivity towards childlessness a lot. We'll just say a lot. But I speak out, and I think it's important for others too. Because sometimes within healthcare, hearing from others who are within healthcare, they kind of tune out. It's helpful when they hear within healthcare, it's helpful when they hear from patients saying this. So offer to be a guest speaker on topics about things like conversations with patients. Reach out to the PR departments, usually patient relation departments, in hospitals, in your clinics, to let them know this is a sensitive topic. How can I let more people within healthcare learn about this so they understand the childless, not by choice community? Speak at wellness centers. Now, these are all diverse platforms, lots of different options to find something that feels right for you, where you can find receptive audiences interested in understanding the experiences of being childless, not by choice, and how others can be supportive. All right, that is all that I have for today. Thanks for joining me, and I will be back with you next week. I'm so glad you joined me. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you liked it, you can find more tips, insight, and support in a private space with other women who are like you so they get you. You can do that by joining my free Facebook group, When Being Childless Isn't by Choice. Join us by clicking on the link in the show notes. You can also stay up to date with me on Instagram at Childless Path Onward and Facebook and YouTube at Path Onward. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.